What's going on, horror fans? Welcome back to my channel. Today I got a special one for you. We're counting down the top 15 horror movie endings of all time. Now, some of them are scary, some of them are shocking, some of them just leave you feeling kind of icky or dirty. But whatever it is, it's effective. Now, some of these are, the ending of a great masterpiece movie. Some of these movies, they're okay, but the ending is amazing. The ending's enough to warrant speaking on it. So I'm going to count down the top 15. Tried to put them in, a decent order, but really all 15 of these are amazing. So let's go ahead and get started. The number 15 on my list is 1968's Night of the Living Dead. This is George A. Romero's masterpiece, and it follows a group of Pennsylvanians who barricade themselves in an old farmhouse in a desperate attempt to feed off these flesh-eating ghouls or zombies that are ransacking the entire Northeast. And it's a terrible, like terrifying movie. The movie's a masterpiece from start to finish, but really the ending is what left people feeling really just downtrodden and bleak. And it's because we have our survivor Ben, who went through all types of horrors throughout the night, but he survived. And upon hearing some gunshots of a posse who's moving in to kind of clear out the remaining zombies the following morning, he makes his way out of the cellar, peeks out of the window, and gets popped right in the head. It's such an unceremonious ending to our hero. It's heartbreaking to see his lifeless body just drug out and thrown on a pile of burning corpses. It's just tragic. It's sad, it's heartbreaking, and it really left audiences back then feeling pretty shitty. And I think this is one of those movies that's just going to last forever, if not because of all the amazing effects, but because of the ending. The ending is truly remarkable, it's legendary, and it's a fitting start to this list. Number 15, Night of the Living Dead. Poor Ben, he got popped in the head. Bro, you didn't deserve it, man. You were awesome. I love you. That sucked. Number 14 on my list is Life. It came out in 2017. If you haven't seen it, it's a fairly standard sci-fi thriller. You have a monster, Calvin, who is uh, set loose on this space station, this research station. They've got a great cast: Rebecca Ferguson, Ryan Reynolds, Jake Gyllenhaal. So there's a lot of familiar, awesome faces. The movie works fairly well. There's some decent scares, but where it crossed over from just okay to cult status for me, a movie that I'm gonna revisit very frequently, is the ending. There is an awesome fake out where you think that Rebecca Ferguson's character is making it to Earth, and Jake Gyllenhaal, with the life form Calvin in his pod, is purposely jettisoning himself into deep space to kill the beast. You find out that they were switched, and unfortunately, Rebecca Ferguson's character is gonna have to succumb to the darkness of space, which in itself is terrifying. And if that was it, that's a pretty bleak ending. But then what follows is we see Jake Gyllenhaal's shuttle land in the middle of an ocean, and the music. Oh my God, when the music hits, when they look in the window and they see him kind of there, completely taken over by the life form, he's begging for them not to open the door. They do anyway, and once you realize the gravity of the situation, you don't have it all happens so fast, so you don't really have a lot of time to sit there. You're just like, holy crap, like that's the end of the human race. There's nothing, they're not going to be able to stop Calvin. He was more than a match for every single human, and he's just going to get bigger and more powerful. It's terrifying, and again, the music is really what elevates it. It just fills you with dread, and almost like, holy crap, I can't believe I just watched that. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. I'm sorry I ruined it for you. Shouldn't be watching this if you haven't seen these movies. There was a spoiler alert in the description. But great movie, great ending, and it's number 14 on my list of top horror endings. Number 13 is the original Saw from 2004. Now, this is, for me, one of the most amazing twist endings of all time. If you say that you saw this coming, you're a liar. Nobody saw it coming. Nobody knew that Jigsaw was lying right in the middle of the floor the entire time. The dead body was Jigsaw. No way. No way. Unless you're just, got a leaked screenplay or something, but nobody saw it coming. And when he stands up, rips his prosthetics off, you start to realize what the hell is going on. And then you have the iconic game over as he shuts the door. And I believe it's Adam is the one screaming and left there. It's just, it's effective in all the ways you want a horror movie to be effective. Again, it fills you with that dread. You understand that there's probably no happy ending for Adam. Jigsaw's won. And then you realize just how smart and capable this guy was because he had checks and plans and plans on top of plans on top of plans. So, I mean, he knew what was going to happen. He knew where everybody was going to be, and he just outfoxed everybody. And it's an amazing ending. It absolutely deserves a spot on this list. I wish I could put it higher, but it has since been topped by some other things on this list, but still deserves recognition. Number 13, the original Saw, blew everybody's mind back then. What a great movie. What a great ending. And we're still seeing Saw movies to this day pretty much because of how amazing this first one was. So number 13, Saw. Number 12 is 1992's Candyman. This is, in my mind, one of the most underrated horror movies of all time. I know people love it, but I don't think enough people appreciate just how thoughtful and amazing this movie was. I didn't understand when I was a kid first watching it just how deep and how many themes and certain things that they explore in this movie. But really, I mean, Helen is tortured, tortured physically, psychologically through this entire movie. Her husband is already moving on to a younger woman. She believed that he was cheating on her. If that appears to be true. So when the movie ends, Helen has sacrificed herself to save the baby, and sort of, I don't know if she's taken Candyman's place or just kind of joined him as another supernatural killer. But to see her start her own, legacy, her own journey, when Trevor is in the bathroom and he calls her name, and then she shows up and gives him exactly what he deserves. Amazing ending, amazing movie. I love Candyman. I watch this movie all the time. If you haven't seen it in a while, go back and watch it. Tony Todd alone is worth watching this movie. But I think Helen is a great character, and then you just see her tragic journey, and it meets its inevitable finale where she becomes, the Candy Woman, the new Candyman. I don't know if she's replacing him or not, but she's definitely going to have quite a few notches on her belt. So I love it. I love the ending of this movie. Candyman, 1992, blows the remake out of the water. Not even close. This one is so much better, pretty much every way it can be. Love this movie, and it's number 12 on my list. Number 11 is 2022's Speak No Evil. Now, this is by far the most recent movie on my list, but it deserves its spot. If you've seen it, you know why. The movie, it follows a Danish family meets a Dutch family on holiday, chance meeting. They end up visiting, and what follows is a series of really unpleasant and unsettling events. And the one family's trying to kind of explain, I mean, you should have told us everything was bothering you. They keep trying to play innocent until they can't keep the facade up anymore. And the climax of the movie is really where I left just with a pit in my stomach because you see not only their small child get mutilated, gets her tongue cut out so that she can't speak, on what's befallen her parents, but then the parents kind of reside to their fate. We've been defeated. We've been outfoxed by these other people. They're forced to strip down, climb down into kind of a ravine or a gully, or I don't know what it is, maybe a quarry, and they're stoned, slowly stoned to death, and left there to rot. As these two now take on their daughter as their own, uh, going off on a holiday, presumably find their next victim. So it really, again, not a happy ending. When you throw a child in there, it just adds another level of just, you feel so terrible for her. You feel terrible for the parents. And again, the ending just stuck with me as a parent so much longer after the movie was over. I couldn't wash myself of it. So if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it. Watch the ending. It'll definitely hit you, especially if you're a parent. And it's number 11 on my list. Truly horrific ending. Most parents' worst nightmare, for sure. Now, just cracking the top 10 is 1973's Don't Look Now. Now, this movie follows John and Laura Baxter, who unfortunately just lost their young daughter to a drowning accident. So they travel to Italy, try to escape things a little bit. But they run into a group of sisters, one of them being psychic, and she says that even though she's blind, she can see their daughter, and she knows that their daughter, is out there. So they start maybe believing that she could be alive. John starts to slowly kind of lose control. He keeps seeing visions of a young girl in the red coat that his daughter was wearing when she drowned all over Italy, and eventually his madness becomes so much that he corners this young girl in an abandoned area. And come to find out, this is a great twist, one of the best twists in cinema history, and one of the most disturbing and unsettling on-screen deaths. When this little girl turns around, come to find out it's not a little girl. It's obviously not his daughter. It's a dwarf woman, an old dwarf woman who is creepy as all hell, and she just slits his fucking throat with a butcher knife, and you find out that like he had been having visions of his own death. So it's a really tragic end, to a man who was just trying to find his daughter. And again, it sticks with you long after the movie's over. You just feel bad, you feel dreadful, you feel melancholy for them. It's just not a happy ending at all, and it's number 10 on my list. Now, number 9, I almost put Buried here because it's a horrible way to go, being buried alive and you're thinking you're going to get saved, and then at the end it's not. So I almost put Buried here with Ryan Reynolds, but I ended up swapping it out for a movie that kind of has a similar finish, and it's The Vanishing. The Vanishing is a movie that follows Rex, and he's trying to find his wife who, at a gas station, she goes in, never comes out, and she just vanishes. And he spends 3 years obsessed with finding out, what happened to her. He keeps getting these random postcards from, the supposed abductor, uh, you know, kind of teasing him and tormenting him. And finally, he shows himself, and he's just a regular guy who has like a family and kids. Yeah, I believe he's a surgeon, but he's gone psycho, and he enjoys like trying to abduct women. And he promises Rex that he will tell him everything, but he has to go through the same treatment, same experience that his girlfriend did or his wife did. Um, and so, for some reason, he agrees. I guess just, I don't know if it's survivor's guilt or just paranoia, or the fact that he just needed to know, and he didn't care about anything else. But he agrees to it. He drinks some liquid from a thermos. Obviously, it's drugged. He passes out. He wakes up buried alive. Obviously, it does not go well for him. But what makes this work a little bit better for me than Buried is his laughter when he kind of resides to his fate and understands that he's been beaten. He just starts laughing, and it's creepy, it's scary, and it just feels way too real, way too plausible, and just it's effective. It's a very effective and scary ending, and it's easily deserves a spot in my top 10. The Vanishing, not the remake, but the one from the 80s. Beautifully done movie, amazing movie. I love it. Number 9 on my list. Number 8 is the original Friday the 13th from 1980. Now, the climax of this movie is legendary. Both the actual finale where Alice chops off Mrs. Voorhees' head and you see her hairy palms, but then the ending. Your Alice is out on a tranquil lake. Everything seems fine. The movie's over. The police show up. It's daytime. Bad stuff doesn't happen during the day. Not in these movies, right? Certainly not in front of the police. And then you get one of the most legendary jump scares of all time. Maybe the best executed jump scare outside of The Exorcist 3, in my opinion. But this movie ends perfectly, and you get your first glimpse of Jason. So they laid the seeds for the franchise that we're all still in love with to this day. Jason's not in the movie except for this final scene. So it's super effective, super scary. Absolutely shocked me the first time I saw it, shocked audiences back in 1980, and it's probably a large reason why we got sequel after sequel after sequels, because people were intrigued. They wanted to know more. They wanted to see more of Jason. So number 7 is 2007's The Mist. Now, you knew it was coming. This is one of the most famous horror endings of all time, and it truly is. It's a tragedy. It is awful. I mean, when you would talk about endings that hit you right in the gut, watching David kill the last remaining survivors because they're just, they're waiting for their fate. They feel like they have no hope. One of them being his own son, his young son. That alone is awful, having to go through that. We watch David break down, scream, and then he steps out to kind of, accept his fate and be ripped apart by the monsters, only for the mist to spread and here comes a giant tank. Here comes the army. They've regained control. Had they just waited a few more minutes, and I think that's the real tragedy of it all is he tried to show them mercy. He tried to spare them all a horrible fate, and now he's gonna have to live with that for the rest of his life. I mean, let's be real. He probably didn't make it too far after this. If it were any of us, I'm sure we'd have a hard time living with that. But anyway, this is one of the most famous horror endings of all time. It's certainly one of the most tragic, easily top 10. For me, it's number 7, just because it's all psychological. There's not really any, I suppose, physical torment, but David is certainly going to cause himself plenty of punishment moving forward. So I feel awful for him every time I watch it. It's a tough movie to watch because where we're going to end up. Certainly not a happy ending. I mean, what parent would ever want to go through something like that? So number 7 is 2007's The Mist. Number 6 is 1976 Carrie. Now, there might not be a more famous ending on this list, and this is a list of famous endings. That's saying something. But Carrie's finale, the prom, the whole prom scene is legendary. I mean, it's sickly satisfying to watch her kind of get, some solace, some vindication, because she's just been tormented relentlessly throughout the entire runtime of this movie. And I'm not saying I enjoy watching young people get tortured like this, but there has to be a small part of you that tunes in to get the satisfaction of watching her get some sort of victory finally. And I mean, I use the term victory loosely because in the end, she doesn't want to live. She goes home, she buries herself and her mother, kills both up, kills herself, kills her mother, her horrible, horrible mother. So it's a weird kind of bittersweet ending because we don't want to see Carrie die. Obviously, we don't want to see her story end so tragically, but at least her suffering is over, and at least she saved anybody else from the torment of her mother. Heaven forbid she has another child or something like that. So, uh, again, it works really well. It's haunting. It's awesome. I mean, some of the effects that they were able to do, so awesome. Uh, I really, really love this movie. I love the finale, and it almost made the top 5, just outside number 6, but no less legendary. 1976's Carrie is a masterpiece. I love it. All right, now we're in the top 5, y'all. Number 5 is 2008's The Strangers. Now, whether you love this movie, you hate this movie, there's no denying that it has just so much realism, so much plausibility that's just terrifying.
Why are you doing this to us? Because you were home.
I mean, come on, like the randomness of it, the fact that these people were not sought out for any particular reason other than we have these 3 psychopaths who just want to kill somebody, and these were the unfortunate souls that were on the list. So, you watch them, you get tortured throughout the movie. They have so many narrow escapes, and you really do think that they're going to get out of it at the end. Most of the time in these movies, they escape, they get out. So it's really off-putting when you finally realize that they're not getting out, and then you have to watch them slowly be stabbed right in front of each other. I mean, the acting here is really well done. It's really believable. It's a hard scene to watch, and then the fact that they just leave, they just walk out. They take a pamphlet from a couple of Mennonite boys or religious boys. I don't know which religion they are, but it's just it's unsettling. It's unsettling because it feels like it could happen to you, and that is something that a lot of these endings don't have, but this one definitely does in spades. The Strangers might not be the greatest home invasion movie, but it certainly has one of the best endings, and it's number 5 on my list. Number 4 is 1978's Halloween, John Carpenter's masterpiece. This movie, from start to finish, had me on the edge of my seat. Uh, it's a testament in the fact that you don't have to gross people out. You don't have to have tons of blood and gore to creep people out. It's all about atmosphere and music and suspense, and it builds to this wonderful climax where Michael finally comes after Laurie and the children. And after he's been dispatched, after Loomis shows up and shoots him 6 times, I shot him 6 times, he falls off the terrace and he's lying there. And then when they go back to look, his body's gone. his body's gone. Laurie gets confirmation this was in fact the boogeyman, and then the music kind of hits. You hear his breathing, and we jump around to all the places where he was or could be. I mean, where is he now? Is he in your home? Is he in your backyard? Is he in your neighborhood? You don't know. And that's the feeling that they wanted to leave audiences with back in 1978. And I guarantee there was a lot of anxious people going home that night, and everybody locked their doors. That's for damn sure. This movie still works to this day. This ending still works to this day. It obviously spawned a pop culture icon, a horror icon that's still turning out movies to this day. The rights have just changed hands again, so we're going to get more Michael Myers content, like it or hate it. I'm a big fan, so I love it. But it all started with this movie. This is still the best in the franchise, best ending in the franchise, and it's number 4 on my list. Bringing home the bronze medal is 1982 The Thing, another John Carpenter masterpiece. This movie is again a masterclass in effects and shocking people and subverting expectations and paranoia and who can you trust. And that runs the whole way through to the very last scene when McCready feels like he's dispatched the thing. He feels somewhat safe. I mean, he knows that the odds of his survival are fairly slim, being stuck out, in the middle of nowhere in freezing cold weather with a fire that's keeping him alive, but is going to eventually burn out. So I think he understands the gravity of the situation regardless. But then Child shows up, and neither man really trusts the other, and they're not sure if it's one of them's the thing or not. And it's been endlessly debated to this day. Is Child the thing? You can't see his breath. Is McGrady the thing? You can't see his breath. But does that matter? Who knows? Who knows what the true ending is? There have been spin-offs and video games that have tried to answer the question, but I kind of like it ambiguous. I like not knowing if one of them is the thing, if one of them's just waiting to assimilate the other one, and then go back into a frozen state to hopefully be awakened at another time. So, super effective ending, super scary, and again, it leaves you just kind of feeling not good. In a situation where you feel like you should be celebrating the hero's triumph. There's no champagne popping. There's no celebration. It's a very melancholy feeling, and then you have the score, the doom, doom. John Carpenter really knows how to. He might as well have just been plucking your heartstring right there and just kind of making you feel exactly what he wanted. The dude is a master manipulator, and I mean that with all due reverence and respect. He knows how to make you feel the way he wants, and this is a masterclass in that. And it's number 3 on my list. The Thing, 1982, also my favorite horror movie of all time. Fun fact. Bringing in the silver medal, we have another horror icon, legend, James Wan. This might be his best movie. It's certainly one of my favorites of his, Insidious from 2008. And what we have is a situation where our heroes feel like they've won. They've come back, from the other place, and they've saved their child. And then Josh is sort of acting suspiciously. So Elise takes his photo, and he starts to act really irrational. And then we have a great reveal, great jump scare that that he has been taken over by the spirit, and it's not over. And the next movie picks up right where this one leaves off. But I prefer to leave it as it is. The unhappy ending where Josh strangles the life out of Elise, and that's kind of the ending. And it works. It works really well. It's scary. It's shocking. The jump scare works. The dread works. You don't feel good when you leave the theater because you're like, damn, like all that, and we pretty much end up exactly where we started. And for some people, that might be a negative. For me, it works. I love the ending of this movie. This movie has some of the best jump scares in the history of cinema. You know what I'm talking about? But the ending, I think, elevates it to another level because James Wan knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly how he wanted you to leave the theater. And, they set up a great sequel. I'm not going to lie. Insidious is a pretty solid franchise, but I think the first one's the best. And I do prefer to kind of take it solo as its own story and just kind of leave it there. So number 2, the silver medal, Insidious, one of my favorite horror endings of all time. One of my favorite horror movies of all time. Insidious. James Wan, mwah, you are a genius. Number one, the gold medal, easily the most just icky horror movie ending that I've ever watched. The movie that made me feel so bad when it went off is 2008's Eden Lake. I felt so bad for Jenny and Steve. The things that they have to go through at the hands of those children, and it's just so malicious and unnecessary. But they fight them off. They to try to survive as long as they can. Jenny goes through so much, including watching Steve get tortured right in front of her, and then she wakes up to find his dead body right next to her, but she somehow gets away, and she actually takes one of the kids down, which is probably her ultimate downfall, because when she is rescued and thinks that she's safe, she finds out that she's actually in the home of the lead kid. And when he comes home and tells his parents that this lady killed one of their friends, uh, um, the other parents are there too. They lose their mind, and you come to find out the apple didn't fall too far from the tree. These people are also psychotic. Maybe not as crazy as their kids, but certainly, definitely a little screw loose. Enough so that they have no intentions of turning Jenny into the police. They're going to take justice into their own hands. And when the boy goes upstairs, deletes the proof off his phone, he looks into the mirror and kind of has a wry smile as you hear Jenny just begging for her life as she's being presumably tortured and murdered down in the bathroom. It just it filled me with so much uneasiness. It almost made me sick to my stomach hearing her. I mean, the performance by Kelly Riley was beautifully done. Michael Fassbender was amazing in this, and as Steve. So the acting, but her performance, so believable, so tragic. And again, it's just painful to see somebody get so close, to go through so much and get so close to the end, and then by sheer happenstance, the only people that she runs into happen to be the parents of the kids that have been tormenting them. So it's a truly tragic ending, and in a list of terrible endings, I feel like her fate is certainly one of the worst. It's one of the most tragic, and it's number one on my list. If you haven't seen Eden Lake, go watch it. I promise you, don't expect to go out afterwards. You're just gonna want to stay home and maybe cry a little bit. It's a pretty depressing movie, but it's also masterfully done, and that was what they were intending to do, and they succeeded. So that's my list. Those are the top 15 horror endings of all time, horror thriller endings of all time. And there are different things that make horror movies work. It's not always blood and guts. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's usually just the mental torment that these people go through. So comment down below. Let me know your list, or your top five, top three, top one. I know your list isn't going to be my list. My list isn't right. It's just my list. These are the movies that left me thinking, left me feeling long after the movies were over. Again, it's tough to put them in order. Really, all 15 are phenomenal. You could move the order around. But I knew that Eden Lake had to be towards the top. I knew Halloween and Insidious, those had to be towards the top. The Thing, those are all movies that I've watched my entire life, most of my life. And they're just super effective. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Comment your list. If you're new here, subscribe. If you like the video, please. It helps the channel a lot. I'm so close to 500 subscribers, and then I can really start getting some help pushing the channel. So I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be here talking horror with you guys. I love you all so, so much. Be good people. Be good to each other. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'm going to try to keep pushing out the videos. So stay tuned. Thank you all. Have a great day.